David, you are the co-author of the catalogue raisonne of Cézanne. Why is Cézanne so important?
Cézanne is, I think, commonly accepted as one of the greatest painters, certainly of the 19th century. And his influence on later painters is colossal. As Picasso said, Cézanne is the father of us all. His contribution to the development of art history is really very, very significant. He had a whole new approach to looking at light and volume and color, and it was he had his own personal laboratory, because he was not really influenced much by anybody after Pissarro, and he developed a style of painting which was the foundation of many subsequent movements.
How can an artist isolated in south of France have such a major creation? Where does it all come from? Because what he's doing is not really beautiful. It's more than that.
Yes, well, he did work a lot in the north, in Paris and around Paris. He did come into contact with quite a lot of other artists, but his work in Aix was done really quite isolation, as you say. And he didn't really like much attention during his lifetime.
Really? Yes, just at the end of his life, right?
Yes. Yeah.
With Vollard.
He sold almost all his paintings to Vollard directly. He was very, very much a solitary figure in Aix.
But what was he looking for?
I think he was looking for a way to capture light and volume using color, and the subject matter was really of less interest to him, rather like Jasper Johns, but the subject matter is secondary to the technique and the style of painting. His portraits of his wife, for instance, don't really make any effort to make her into a beautiful or attractive woman. He famously painted her as like an apple.
Yes, he said so about his wife,
Yes.
right? And she's not really beautiful.
In the paintings, she's not.
And in real?
Well, I don't know because I never met her. She looked like a perfectly normal 19th century French lady, but the way he depicted her, it made no effort to make her beautiful or attractive, or even in many cases looking like a person.
But but because in the show in Aix-en-Provence, we see some portrait of at least 3 portraits of the wife, and what do you think he's looking for in these portraits?
Again, he's looking at a way of portraying either his wife or a still life or the Mont Saint-Victoire by using color and light to build up basic forms.
And what about the white in the painting and in the drawing? very unachieved on purpose composition. What do you
Yes,
think
yeah.
about that?
Well, some years ago there was a wonderful exhibition called
Unfinished?
Achevé ou inachevé.
Ah ouais. At the...
And it went into some depth, great depth, as to whether the paintings were actually abandoned or unfinished or intentional. And it's definitely, I think, the case that many of these compositions, which have large areas of white in them, were intended to be that way. They were not just abandoned.
And yes, it was at the Met Breuer, right?
I saw it. I saw this one at somewhere in Europe. I can't remember.
Ah, really?
Yeah.
Because it was also in New York. And what can we say about the fact that many compositions, above all the Nature Morte, are unbalanced? Yes, the table is not straight and things like that. What is it for you?
This is deliberate.
Yes, for sure.
He wanted to alter the composition to achieve an effect which realistic perspective would make less interesting. So many of his still lives, the apples are going to fall off the table. In many of the interior scenes, the furniture doesn't really sit properly on, or the sitter doesn't sit properly on the furniture. There's a very good example of that right early on, when he does a portrait of his father, who is sitting in a chair, and if you look at it very carefully, you can't tell whether he's sitting on the chair sideways or fully in front. The chair is slightly twisted. This was a deliberate,
Strategy?
Strategy, yes, it is.
But what for?
I think to enhance the composition.
And do you know how many paintings Cézanne did?
Well, we have recorded about 960, I think.
And what about
that's just oil paintings.
and what about drawings?
I think we've got over 1,000 drawings, and drawings, it's difficult to describe drawings as single works of art because many of them are double-sided, many of them are in sketchbooks. But he was very prolific.
And did you learn something in the show in Aix-en-Provence? Is there something new?
Well, yes, I think so. One of the things that struck me was actually being in Aix-en-Provence. I got a better understanding of his use of color. One of the trips that I made was to the quarry of Benhamou, which is a wonderful romantic place.
Benhamou is very important, I think, because it's a cubist place.
It's a cubist place, exactly, and you can see where some of the colors that he uses derive from these sort of orangey red sandstone blocks.
And he went to Benhamou late in his life, no?
Yes, it was in the last 10 years of his life, I think.
Okay.
After he built the atelier on the Rue des Louvres.
So that's why you learned this time in Aix?
I always learn something when I look at Cézanne's, and this was the main thing I learned this time around. Was relationship with the landscape to his palette.
Merci, monsieur.